These BuzzFeed mysteries haunted the internet for years. Now they're all solved, and the truth is worse than you think. In this video, I will cover 5 cases, starting with the bizarre case of Elisa Lam, who was found dead in the water tank on the roof of Seal Hotel. In January 2013, a 21-year-old Canadian student named Elisa Lam traveled alone to Los Angeles. She was on a solo trip, exploring the West Coast. On the 26th of January, she checked into the Cecil Hotel on Skid Row, one of LA's most troubled neighborhoods. The Cecil Hotel had a dark history. Built in 1924, it became known as a place where people went to disappear. Over the decades, it housed serial killers, witnessed murders, and saw countless suicides. But Elisa didn't know about this reputation when she booked her stay. From the start, something was wrong. Her roommates at the hostel section of the hotel complained about her strange behavior. She left mysterious notes around the room. She demanded that they set passwords on their phones and laptops. She acted paranoid and scared. On the 31st of January 2013, Elisa Lam vanished. Her family in Vancouver became worried when she stopped calling them daily as planned. Hotel staff couldn't find her. Her belongings remained in her room, but she was gone. The Los Angeles Police Department launched a search. They looked everywhere: the hotel, nearby streets, abandoned buildings, nothing. Then, on the 13th of February, they made a decision that would change everything. They released security footage from the hotel's elevator. The video was haunting. It showed Elisa in the elevator, pressing multiple buttons. She stepped in and out of the elevator repeatedly. She hid in the corner as if someone was chasing her. She waved her hands in strange gestures, talking to someone who wasn't there. The elevator doors stayed open the entire time, as if broken. The internet exploded. Millions watched the elevator footage. People created wild theories. Some said demons possessed her. Others claimed she was playing the elevator game, a ritual to reach another dimension. Many believe she was murdered, and the video showed her final moments of terror. On the 19th of February 2013, hotel guests started complaining. Their tap water was brown and tasted strange. Some said it smelled bad. The hotel sent maintenance worker Santiago Lopez to check the rooftop water tanks. Lopez climbed to the roof and opened the first tank. The water looked normal. He moved to the second tank and removed the heavy lid. Inside, he found a horror that would haunt him forever. Elisa Lam's naked body floated in the water thousands of hotel guests had been drinking for days. The tank had to be drained completely. Workers cut a hole in the side to remove her body because the opening was too small. She was wearing the same clothes from the elevator video, found floating beside her in the tank. The real story is both simpler and more tragic than any internet theory. The Los Angeles County coroner ruled Elisa's death an accident, with bipolar disorder as a significant contributing factor. The truth was hidden in plain sight. Elisa had been diagnosed with bipolar disorder and had suffered mental breakdowns where she became delusional, fearing someone was chasing her. Detective Tim Marshall revealed that Elisa had a history of not taking her bipolar medications, and when this happened, she would have hallucinations and hide under her bed for refuge. The medication was the key. Among her possessions left at the hotel were several prescription medications, seemingly untouched. She had stopped taking her pills, triggering a severe manic episode. The elevator video suddenly made sense. Elisa wasn't running from a killer or playing supernatural games. She was experiencing hallucinations and paranoia from her untreated mental illness. She was pressing buttons frantically because she thought someone was following her. She was talking to hallucinations only she could see. Many people claimed it was impossible for Elisa to reach the roof alone. This became a key part of conspiracy theories. But the truth was different. A video posted to the internet after Lam's death showed that the hotel's roof was easily accessible via the fire escape, and that 2 of the lids of the water tanks were open. The roof of the Cecil can be accessed by an exterior fire escape ladder. The hotel staff had left the water tank lids open during maintenance. Elisa, in her manic state, climbed the fire escape to the roof. She saw the open tank and, confused and disoriented, climbed inside. The water was cold. In her condition, she couldn't climb back out. This case shows how dangerous untreated mental illness can be. Elisa was a bright young woman studying at the University of British Columbia. She loved travel and had dreams for her future. But without her medication, her mind turned against her. Bipolar disorder most commonly begins in a person's late teens to mid-20s. Elisa fit this pattern perfectly. Many young people with bipolar disorder struggle with taking medication consistently. The side effects can be difficult, and during stable periods, they may feel they don't need the pills. But stopping medication suddenly can trigger severe episodes. Elisa experienced what doctors call a manic episode with psychotic features. She heard voices, saw things that weren't there, and believed people were following her. The Elisa Lam case became one of the most famous unsolved mysteries on the internet, but it was never really unsolved. The evidence was clear from the beginning. A young woman with untreated mental illness had a tragic accident. The real horror isn't supernatural. It's how society failed Elisa when she needed help most. Instead of recognizing the signs of mental health crisis, people created ghost stories and conspiracy theories. Her family's grief became internet entertainment. The case highlights how we treat mental illness in our society. We prefer mysterious explanations over uncomfortable truths. We'd rather believe in demons than accept that mental health problems can be deadly when left untreated. Thousands of young people struggle with bipolar disorder every day. Elisa's story should remind us that mental health is health. When someone shows signs of crisis, paranoia, strange behavior, stopping medication, they need medical help, not viral fame. The elevator video that haunted millions was actually a cry for help. Elisa Lam was a real person with a real illness who needed real care. Her death was preventable. That's the most disturbing truth of all. The summer of 1974 brought thousands of tourists to Cape Cod's pristine beaches, but nothing could have prepared visitors for the horror that awaited in the Race Point Dunes. On the 26th of July, 1974, a 12-year-old girl walking with her family through the sandy hills near Provincetown made a discovery that would haunt investigators for nearly half a century. There, lying nude on a beach blanket in the remote dunes, was the severely decomposed body of a woman. The scene was unlike anything local police had encountered. The victim's hands had been completely severed from her wrists, making fingerprint identification impossible. Her teeth had been removed with surgical precision, eliminating dental records as a means of identification. Most disturbing of all, she had suffered massive head trauma. Her skull was crushed, and she was nearly decapitated. The calculated nature of the mutilation sent chills through the investigation team. This was not a crime of passion or a random act of violence. Someone had gone to extraordinary lengths to ensure this woman could never be identified. The medical examiner determined that she had been dead for several weeks before discovery, killed sometime in early July 1974. For nearly 5 decades, she would be known only as the Lady of the Dunes, a Jane Doe whose identity seemed destined to remain forever lost. The case consumed investigators for generations. The woman's body was exhumed an unprecedented 4 times, in 1980, 2000, 2013, and again in later years as forensic technology advanced and new identification methods became available. Each exhumation brought hope that modern science might finally reveal her identity, but decade after decade passed without answers. The investigation generated countless leads and theories. The victim's age was estimated at 25 to 40 years old, with reddish-brown hair and standing about 5'6" tall. She had distinctive dental work that suggested she came from an area with good dental care. A beach towel found with the body bore the label of a Massachusetts department store, but this clue led nowhere. The mystery captivated not just law enforcement, but the public imagination. The case inspired books, documentaries, and countless amateur detectives who pored over every detail. Online forums buzzed with theories about her identity and potential connections to other unsolved cases. Over the years, investigators pursued numerous suspects, each bringing their own dark history to the case. The notorious Boston crime boss, Whitey Bulger, emerged as a person of interest due to his known practice of removing victims' teeth to prevent identification, a signature that matched the Lady of the Dunes case perfectly. Bulger had operated in the area during the 1970s and was known for his methodical approach to disposing of bodies. Serial killer Tony Costa, who had terrorized Cape Cod in the late 1960s, also drew scrutiny. Costa had brutally murdered several young women in Provincetown before his capture in 1969. Though he was in prison when the Lady of the Dunes was killed, investigators wondered if he might have had accomplices or if the case was connected to his earlier crimes. Perhaps most intriguingly, Haddon Clark, a convicted serial killer, actually confessed to the murder in the 1990s. Clark had a history of killing women and had been in the area during 1974. However, his confession was filled with inconsistencies and ultimately proved unreliable, another dead end in a case full of false leads. Each suspect brought hope that the mystery might finally be solved, but each investigation ultimately led nowhere. The Lady of the Dunes seemed destined to remain forever nameless. Everything changed on the 31st of October 2022, nearly 48 years after that 12-year-old girl made her grim discovery. The FBI announced they had finally identified the Lady of the Dunes through advanced genetic genealogy techniques. Her name was Ruth Marie Terry, a 37-year-old woman from Tennessee. Ruth had been born on the 8th of September, 1936, and had lived a life marked by hardship and broken relationships. She had given birth to a son as a teenager and later struggled with the decision to give him up for adoption. By 1974, she was living an itinerant lifestyle, moving from place to place and relationship to relationship. The identification brought both relief and renewed heartbreak. Ruth's biological son, Richard Hanchett, had spent years searching for his birth mother, never knowing that she had been murdered decades earlier. The discovery that his mother had been the famous Lady of the Dunes was devastating. He had been searching for a woman who had been dead since he was a teenager. The identification of Ruth Marie Terry was only the beginning. As investigators dug deeper into her life, they uncovered a truth more than anyone could have imagined. The FBI announced that Ruth's killer was her own husband, Guy Rockwell Moldavan, a charismatic con man who had married her just months before her death in February 1974. But this revelation was merely the tip of an iceberg of horror. As authorities examined Moldavan's past, they discovered he was not just a murderer, he was likely a serial killer who had been operating for decades. Moldavan's killing career appeared to stretch back to at least 1960, when his second wife, Manzanita Eileen Ryan, and her teenage daughter disappeared from their Seattle home. Police at the time suspected Moldavan, but could never prove his involvement. The case went cold, and Moldavan simply moved on to his next victim. Years later, investigators would discover horrifying evidence in that Seattle home. Body parts were found in the septic tank, remains that were believed to belong to Manzanita and her daughter. The discovery confirmed what investigators had long suspected. Moldavan was a serial killer who had been perfecting his deadly craft for years before he met Ruth Marie Terry. The pattern was always the same. Moldavan would charm his way into relationships with vulnerable women, often marrying them quickly. He was described by those who knew him as charismatic and persuasive, a man who could talk his way into anyone's trust. But beneath the charm lay a calculating killer who viewed his wives as disposable. Perhaps the most infuriating aspect of the Lady of the Dunes case is that Guy Rockwell Moldavan was never brought to justice. He lived freely for nearly 3 decades after killing Ruth Marie Terry, moving from place to place, marrying again, and likely claiming more victims. He died of natural causes in 2000, and 2, taking his secrets to the grave. Moldavan had managed to hide in plain sight for over 50 years, presenting himself as a respectable businessman while systematically destroying families. He worked as a vice president of a silver store, operated radio stations, and maintained the facade of normalcy even as he left a trail of bodies across multiple states. The Lady of the Dunes case represents something far more terrifying than a single murder. It reveals how a serial killer can operate undetected for decades, leaving devastation in his wake while living a comfortable, seemingly normal life. Multiple families were destroyed while Guy Moldavan enjoyed his freedom, moved through society unchallenged, and continued his deadly pattern. The case serves as a stark reminder that monsters don't always lurk in shadows. Sometimes they hide behind wedding rings and business cards, charming their way through life while leaving a trail of broken families and unmarked graves. Ruth Marie Terry's story may have finally been told, but her killer's full legacy of destruction may never be fully known. In 2010, a decorated Vietnam War pilot and wealthy art dealer named Forrest Fenn made an announcement that would captivate the world and ultimately cost 5 people their lives. The 80-year-old New Mexico antiquities dealer claimed he had hidden a bronze chest filled with gold, jewels, and artifacts, worth over $2 million somewhere in the Rocky Mountains. Forrest Fenn's story began with a cancer diagnosis that prompted him to consider his legacy. After surviving the illness, he decided to create an adventure that would inspire people to explore the outdoors and create lasting memories. In his 2010 memoir, The Thrill of the Chase, Fenn included a cryptic 24-line poem that served as the only clue to finding his hidden treasure. The poem contained 9 clues that Fenn claimed would lead searchers to the bronze chest containing gold coins, nuggets, rare artifacts, and precious stones. He estimated the treasure's value at between $1 minus $3 million, though some valued it even higher. The chest was supposedly hidden somewhere in the Rocky Mountains, north of Santa Fe, New Mexico, and below the Canadian border. Word of the treasure hunt spread rapidly across the internet and media. Fenn estimated over 350,000 people went looking for the chest along the mountainous terrain. The promise of untold riches drew amateur treasure hunters, experienced outdoorsmen, and desperate fortune seekers from around the world. Some people quit their jobs and devoted years of their lives to solving Fenn's riddles. What began as an adventure quickly turned deadly. The rugged terrain of the Rocky Mountains, combined with searchers' desperation and inexperience, created a perfect storm for tragedy. 5 people died while searching for the treasure, each victim representing the dark side of Fenn's grand adventure. The deaths occurred across several years and multiple states. Randy Bilyeu, 2016, a 54-year-old from Colorado, became the first known victim. He disappeared while searching along the Rio Grande in New Mexico during winter conditions. His body was later discovered by river workers, highlighting the dangerous conditions many searchers faced. Jeff Murphy, 2017. The 53-year-old from Illinois fell approximately 500 feet to his death in Yellowstone National Park while searching for the treasure. His tragic fall demonstrated how the hunt led people to take extreme risks in hazardous locations. Paris Wallace, 2017. A pastor from Colorado became another casualty when his body was found downstream in the Rio Grande. His death showed that even experienced outdoorsmen could fall victim to the treasure's deadly allure. Eric Ashby, 2017. Eric Ashby was hunting for the Forrest Fenn treasure when he went missing, making him a potential third victim of the controversial treasure hunt. His body was later discovered in the Arkansas River, adding to the growing death toll. Michael Wayne Stan, 2020. The final victim died near Dinosaur National Monument, reportedly accompanied by a companion during his fatal search attempt. The mountain casualties prompted law enforcement agencies to issue warnings and even call for an end to the treasure hunt. In the last couple years, 2 people have died, 2 have been rescued near death, several have had run-ins with local and federal law enforcement, and one told his wife today he was injured but not where he was. The Gallatin County Sheriff's Office wrote in 2019, on the 6th of June, 2020, after a decade of searching and mounting controversy, Fenn finally announced that his treasure had been found. The revelation came with a shocking twist that nobody saw coming. The finder was eventually revealed to be Jack Stoof, a 32-year-old Michigan native and medical student. What made Stoof's discovery particularly surprising was his background as a former journalist and writer, including work that connected him to internet culture and mystery-solving communities. After 2 years of searching, Jack Stoof found Forrest Fenn's treasure at an undisclosed location in Wyoming in 2020. Stoof had initially discovered the treasure hunt through social media in 2018 and became obsessed with solving the puzzle that had stumped hundreds of thousands of others. The treasure's location in Wyoming came as a surprise to many searchers who had focused their efforts in New Mexico and Colorado, following what they believed were the most obvious interpretations of Fenn's clues. The treasure's discovery didn't end the controversy surrounding Fenn's hunt. Multiple lawsuits emerged, with treasure hunters claiming they had been cheated or that Fenn had moved the treasure to help his preferred finder. One of the most prominent legal challenges came from a French treasure hunter who sued for $10 million, alleging that Fenn had relocated the treasure or provided additional clues to certain searchers. These lawsuits highlighted the intense emotions and financial investments that many searchers had poured into the decade-long hunt. The legal battles also forced Stoof to reveal his identity, something he had initially hoped to keep private. The publicity brought unwanted attention and harassment from disappointed treasure hunters who questioned the legitimacy of his find. What Forrest Fenn presented as a romantic adventure became something far more sinister. The treasure hunt revealed the lengths people would go to for the promise of easy wealth, often putting themselves in deadly situations they were unprepared for. Some gave up their jobs, some lost their families, and 5 people even lost their lives. The human cost of Fenn's grand experiment raised serious questions about the responsibility of creating such ventures. Critics argue that Fenn's treasure hunt was essentially a deadly game that exploited people's desperation and greed. The hunt also exposed the dangerous combination of internet fame, treasure-seeking fever, and inadequate outdoor experience. Many searchers ventured into wilderness areas without proper preparation, equipment, or knowledge of the risks they faced. Fenn himself died on the 7th of September, 2020, just months after his treasure was found, at the age of 90. 2 people targeted in the case died by suicide, and Fenn blamed the FBI for their deaths, adding another layer of tragedy to an already dark story. The Forrest Fenn treasure hunt serves as a cautionary tale about the power of greed and the unintended consequences of viral phenomena. What began as one man's attempt to inspire outdoor adventure became a deadly obsession that claimed multiple lives and destroyed families. The story reveals how quickly an innocent idea can spiral out of control in the age of social media and instant communication. Fenn's treasure hunt became a global phenomenon that attracted not just adventure seekers, but also desperate individuals willing to risk everything for the chance at wealth. The 5 deaths associated with the treasure hunt represent more than just statistics. They were real people with families and dreams who paid the ultimate price for someone else's idea of adventure. Their tragic ends serve as a stark reminder that the pursuit of treasure, whether real or imagined, can exact a terrible human cost. Today, the Forrest Fenn treasure hunt is remembered not for the adventure it promised, but for the lives it claimed and the dark obsessions it revealed about human nature. It stands as a powerful example of how the promise of easy wealth can transform ordinary people into risk takers, willing to bet their lives on a cryptic poem and the word of a stranger. On the 28th of August, 2003, America witnessed one of the most bizarre and disturbing crimes in modern history. What appeared to be a simple bank robbery quickly transformed into a deadly game that seemed ripped from the pages of a horror movie. The events that unfolded in Erie, Pennsylvania, would later be described by the FBI as one of the most complicated and bizarre crimes in the annals of the FBI. Brian Wells was finishing his pizza delivery shift at Mamma Mia's Pizzeria when he received one final delivery order. The call came from an obscure location, a transmission tower site, down a dirt road on the outskirts of Erie. The 46-year-old delivery man had no idea he was walking into a carefully orchestrated death trap that would end his life in the most horrifying way imaginable. After making what he thought was a routine delivery, Wells emerged from the remote location with a deadly secret wrapped around his neck. A sophisticated collar bomb had been locked onto him, a device that would turn him into an unwilling participant in one of America's most twisted criminal schemes. At approximately 2:28 p.m., Wells walked into the PNC Bank in Summit Town Center, just south of Erie. The scene was surreal and terrifying. The normally mild-mannered pizza delivery man approached the teller with a metal collar around his neck, a cane gun in his hand, and bizarrely, a lollipop in his mouth. The juxtaposition of the innocent candy with the deadly weapon created an image that would haunt investigators for years. Wells handed the teller a demand note requesting $250,000 within exactly 15 minutes, claiming the bomb around his neck would explode if his demands weren't met. The teller, faced with this unprecedented situation, explained that she couldn't access the bank's vault quickly enough to gather such a large amount. Despite Wells' desperate pleas and the ticking clock around his neck, she could only provide $8,702 from her drawer. The bank's security cameras captured the entire surreal scene. Wells appeared nervous and agitated, constantly looking at his watch as precious minutes ticked away. He wasn't behaving like a typical bank robber. There was genuine fear in his eyes, as if he understood that his life depended on completing this impossible task. When Wells left the bank with the inadequate sum of money, he carried with him more than just the cash. Investigators later discovered he possessed 9 pages of handwritten instructions that revealed the true horror of his situation. These pages detailed an elaborate scavenger hunt with multiple timed tasks that Wells would need to complete to supposedly defuse the bomb around his neck. The instructions were methodical and cruel, designed like a twisted game show where the stakes were literally life and death. Each clue led to another location, with specific time limits that made completion nearly impossible. The psychological torture was as sophisticated as the physical device itself. Wells was given hope that he could survive while being placed in a situation designed to ensure his failure. Law enforcement quickly spotted Wells driving away from the bank and pulled him over on Upper Peach Street. When officers approached his vehicle, they immediately recognized the severity of the situation. The metal collar around Wells' neck was clearly visible, along with wires and what appeared to be an explosive device. Wells was surprisingly cooperative with police, repeatedly telling officers that he had been forced to rob the bank by 4 black men who had put the collar bomb on him. He explained that he was just a pizza delivery man who had been chosen at random for this horrible ordeal. His story seemed plausible. Who would willingly put themselves in such a dangerous situation? Police made the difficult decision to handcuff Wells while they waited for bomb squad technicians to arrive. The situation was unprecedented, and officers had to balance public safety with Wells' desperate circumstances. Wells sat on the ground, handcuffed and pleading for help, as the minutes counted down on the device around his neck. What happened next became one of the most disturbing scenes ever captured on police video. Traffic delays prevented the bomb squad from reaching the scene in time. With Wells begging for help and officers maintaining a safe distance, the unthinkable occurred. The collar bomb exploded just 3 minutes before help could arrive. The explosion was sudden and devastating. Wells' final moments were captured on police dashcam footage, showing a man who realized in his last seconds that his supposed partners had sentenced him to death. The blast killed Wells instantly, leaving investigators with more questions than answers and a crime scene unlike anything they had ever encountered. The immediate aftermath was chaos. Emergency responders rushed to the scene, but it was too late for Wells. The sophisticated nature of the collar bomb and the elaborate instructions found with Wells indicated that this was no simple bank robbery gone wrong. This was something far more sinister and complex. As investigators dug deeper into the case, a shocking truth began to emerge. Brian Wells wasn't just an innocent victim chosen at random, he was actually part of the conspiracy that killed him. The revelation turned the entire case on its head and revealed a level of betrayal that was almost incomprehensible. The investigation uncovered a group of amateur criminals led by Marjorie Deal Armstrong, a mentally unstable woman with a history of violence and manipulation. Deal Armstrong had assembled a team of co-conspirators that included her ex-boyfriend, William Rothstein, a clever handyman with a dark past, and Kenneth Barnes, a crack dealer looking for easy money. The true motive behind the elaborate scheme was as twisted as the crime itself. Deal Armstrong needed $250,000 to hire Barnes to kill her father, Harold Deal, so she could inherit his money. The bank robbery was designed as a means to fund a murder, making it a crime within a crime. Wells' role in the conspiracy was both crucial and tragic. He had agreed to participate in what he believed was a fake robbery scheme. The conspirators had convinced him that the collar bomb was a prop and that if he were caught, the fake bomb would provide him with a perfect alibi. He could claim he was forced to commit the crime under duress. The plan was diabolical in its psychological manipulation. Wells thought he was participating in an elaborate hoax that would net him easy money with minimal risk. He trusted his conspirators enough to allow them to place a metal collar around his neck, never suspecting that they had decided to eliminate him as a potential witness. What Wells discovered too late was that his partners had decided he knew too much and posed too great a risk to their long-term security. Rather than use a fake bomb as promised, they had constructed a real explosive device that would eliminate Wells regardless of whether the robbery succeeded or failed. The collar bomb was sophisticated and deadly, constructed with enough explosive power to kill Wells instantly while minimizing damage to the surrounding area. The conspirators had planned his death from the beginning, using his trust and desperation against him in the cruelest possible way. Kenneth Barnes later testified that the group had always planned to kill Wells. The elaborate scavenger hunt instructions were nothing more than a cruel joke designed to give Wells false hope while ensuring he would be far from help when the bomb exploded. Even if Wells had completed every task perfectly, the bomb was set to explode regardless. The case remained unsolved for nearly 4 years until a break came from an unexpected source. William Rothstein, apparently suffering from a crisis of conscience and facing his own mortality due to cancer, contacted authorities about an unrelated murder. His revelations eventually led investigators back to the collar bomb case and exposed the entire conspiracy. In 2007, Marjorie Deal Armstrong and Kenneth Barnes were indicted for their roles in Wells' murder and the bank robbery scheme. The investigation revealed a web of dysfunction, mental illness, and criminal behavior that had culminated in one of the most elaborate murder plots in American history. Barnes eventually pleaded guilty and testified against Deal Armstrong, revealing the full scope of the conspiracy and confirming investigators' worst suspicions about Wells' role in his own death. Rothstein died of cancer before he could be prosecuted, taking some secrets to his grave. The Brian Wells case represents something far more disturbing than a simple crime gone wrong. It reveals the depths of human cruelty and the ease with which trust can be weaponized against the innocent. Wells' final moments, captured on police video, serve as a haunting reminder of what happens when desperation meets manipulation. The case also highlights the sophisticated nature of modern criminal conspiracies. The collar bomb device required significant technical knowledge to construct, while the psychological manipulation used against Wells showed a deep understanding of human nature and vulnerability. These weren't random street criminals, they were intelligent individuals who used their skills for evil. Perhaps most disturbing of all is the realization that Wells spent his final moments understanding that the people he had trusted with his life had betrayed him in the most fundamental way possible. The look of dawning comprehension on his face as the timer counted down remains one of the most haunting images in criminal history. The case serves as a stark reminder that evil often comes disguised as opportunity, and that the promise of easy money can lead to the ultimate price. Brian Wells' death stands as a testament to the dangers of trusting the wrong people and the devastating consequences that can result from a moment of poor judgment. Today, the collar bomb case remains a cautionary tale about the darkest aspects of human nature and the lengths some people will go to achieve their goals, regardless of who gets hurt in the process. The murder of Tupac Shakur stands as one of the most infamous unsolved cases in American history, until the 29th of September, 2023, when police finally made an arrest that shocked the world. For nearly 3 decades, the killing of the legendary rapper remained shrouded in mystery, conspiracy theories, and unanswered questions. But the truth, when it finally emerged, proved to be both simpler and more complex than anyone could have imagined. The night of the 7th of September, 1996, began with celebration and ended in tragedy. Tupac Shakur, just 25 years old and at the height of his fame, attended the Mike Tyson vs. Bruce Seldon heavyweight championship fight at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas. The fight was a spectacle. Tyson knocked out Seldon in the first round, sending the celebrity-packed crowd into a frenzy. Among those in attendance was Marion Suge Knight, the imposing CEO of Death Row Records and Tupac's boss. The two were riding high on the success of Tupac's latest album and planning their next moves in the cutthroat world of hip-hop. What should have been a night of triumph would instead become the beginning of the end for one of rap's greatest talents. At 11:15 p.m. PDT, Tupac Shakur was shot in a drive-by shooting in Paradise, Nevada. The shooting occurred when the car carrying Shakur was stopped at a red light at East Flamingo Road and Koval Lane. Knight was only grazed in the head, but Shakur was hit several times. He died in a hospital several days later. The attack was swift and brutal. A white Cadillac pulled alongside Suge Knight's black BMW sedan at the intersection. The occupants of the Cadillac opened fire, unleashing a barrage of bullets that would change hip-hop history forever. Tupac was struck 4 times, while Suge Knight suffered only minor injuries from bullet fragments. For 6 agonizing days, Tupac fought for his life in University Medical Center of Southern Nevada. Fans around the world held vigil, praying for the recovery of their idol. But on the 13th of September, 1996, the unthinkable happened. Tupac Shakur was pronounced dead, leaving behind a legacy that would only grow larger in his absence. From the beginning, investigators had a prime suspect, Orlando Baby Lane Anderson, a member of the Southside Compton Crips gang. Orlando Anderson, a Crips gang member, was suspected in the murder but denied being involved and was never charged. He was killed in an unrelated gang shootout in 1998. The connection between Anderson and Tupac's murder stemmed from events earlier that same evening at the MGM Grand. After the Tyson fight, Tupac can then be seen on the MGM security camera running over to Anderson with the rest of his entourage and throwing the first punch. Anderson then suffered a severe beatdown as he was jumped by 5 men with no one to help him. The altercation was captured on the casino surveillance cameras, showing Tupac and his death row associates attacking Anderson in the hotel lobby. The beating was severe and public, a humiliation that would demand retaliation in the world of gang culture. The beating occurred 3 hours before Shakur's shooting. The motive for the attack was reportedly Anderson's attempt to steal a Death Row Records chain from one of Tupac's associates. In the hyper-masculine world of 1990s hip-hop, such disrespect could not go unanswered. But what Tupac and his crew didn't realize was that their public humiliation of Anderson would set in motion a chain of events that would end in murder. Despite being the obvious suspect, Anderson was never charged with Tupac's murder. He maintained his innocence until his death in 1998, when he was killed in an unrelated gang shooting in Compton. With Anderson's death, it seemed that the truth about Tupac's murder might never be known. The case remained cold for over a decade until Detective Greg Kading of the Los Angeles Police Department reopened the investigation as part of a joint task force examining both Tupac's murder and the subsequent killing of his rival, the Notorious Big. Kading's approach was unconventional and ultimately successful. Greg Kading is a former LAPD detective who led a task force that investigated the 1990s murders of famed arch-rival rappers Tupac Shakur and Notorious B.I.G. In 2009, Kading secured the initial confession from Dwayne "Kef D" Davis. The breakthrough came not through traditional detective work, but through an unrelated drug investigation. In 2008, federal agents were building a case against Dwayne "Keef D" Davis, Orlando Anderson's uncle and a high-ranking member of the Southside Compton Crips. Davis faced potentially decades in prison on drug trafficking charges. Facing the prospect of spending the rest of his life behind bars, Davis made a decision that would finally crack the Tupac case wide open. He agreed to cooperate with law enforcement and provide information about unsolved crimes, including his nephew's alleged involvement in Tupac's murder. In 2009, Kading secured the initial confession from Dwayne "Kef D" Davis, who was recently arrested in Las Vegas for his role in the murder plot. What Davis revealed in those recorded interviews would rewrite the entire narrative of Tupac's death. According to Davis's confession, the murder wasn't a random act of gang violence or even solely about the MGM Grand beating. Instead, it was connected to the broader East Coast-West Coast hip-hop rivalry that was tearing the rap world apart in the mid-1990s. The most explosive revelation in Davis's confession was his claim that Sean Diddy Combs, the head of Bad Boy Records and Tupac's East Coast rival, had allegedly put out a bounty on both Tupac and Suge Knight. According to Kading, Diddy put up a $1 million to take out Suge and Tupac. This allegation sent shockwaves through the hip-hop community. Diddy had long been suspected by some of having involvement in Tupac's death, but this was the first time someone with direct knowledge had made such a claim to law enforcement. Combs responded to the allegation by telling Los Angeles local reporters in emails that this story is pure fiction and completely ridiculous. However, Davis later revealed that while the bounty may have existed, the actual murder wasn't carried out for the money. Instead, it was personal retaliation for the beating Anderson had suffered at the MGM Grand. According to Davis's detailed confession, the events of the 7th of September, 1996, unfolded as a carefully planned act of revenge. After Anderson was beaten at the MGM Grand, he contacted his uncle Keef D for help in retaliating against Tupac and Death Row Records. Davis armed Anderson with a .40 caliber Glock pistol, reportedly obtained from Eric "Zip" Martin, a known associate in their criminal circle. The plan was simple but deadly: follow Tupac's vehicle and take their shot when the opportunity presented itself. The white Cadillac that will become infamous in hip-hop lore contained 4 men. Keef D was driving with Anderson Terrence "Bubble Up" Brown and DeAndre Dre Smith as passengers. They stalked Tupac's black BMW through the streets of Las Vegas, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. That moment came at the intersection of East Flamingo Road and Koval Lane, where traffic forced Suge Knight's BMW to stop at a red light. A white Cadillac pulled up to Shakur's vehicle and opened fire. Anderson, sitting in the backseat behind Keef D, allegedly fired the shots that killed Tupac. The attack was over in seconds, but its impact would reverberate through the music industry and popular culture for decades. 4 bullets found their target, mortally wounding the 25-year-old rapper and creating one of the most enduring mysteries in American crime. For years after his confession to Detective Kading, Keef D seemed untouchable by the law. His cooperation agreement protected him from prosecution for the information he had provided. But Davis made a crucial mistake. He couldn't stop talking about his role in Tupac's murder. In interviews, documentaries, and even his own book, Davis repeatedly detailed his involvement in the murder plot. When he chose to start boasting about Tupac in public, Kading told the U.S., Sunday, Davis exposed himself to prosecution. On the 29th of September, 2023, exactly 27 years after Tupac's murder, police arrested Dwayne Keith Davis, the man believed to have orchestrated the murder of Tupac Shakur. A grand jury indicted Davis on charges of murder with the use of a deadly weapon in connection to the 1996 killing. The arrest sent shockwaves through Las Vegas and the hip-hop community. After nearly 3 decades of speculation, conspiracy theories, and false leads, law enforcement had finally made an arrest in one of the most famous unsolved murders in American history. Dwayne Keith "Kef" D. Davis is the only person still alive who was in the vehicle from which shots were fired in the 1996 killing of rap music icon Tupac Shakur. The other 3 occupants of the white Cadillac, including the alleged shooter Orlando Anderson, Iswan, had all died in the years since the murder, making Davis the last living witness to the crime. Perhaps the most ironic aspect of Davis's arrest was that he had essentially talked himself into prison. For years, he had publicly discussed his role in the murder, apparently believing that his previous cooperation agreement would protect him indefinitely. "Keith D is the last man standing," Kading said. Davis's decision to repeatedly confess in public forums ultimately became the evidence that law enforcement needed to bring charges against him. The arrest represented a stunning turn of events for a man who had managed to avoid prosecution for decades. Davis had seemingly gotten away with one of the most notorious murders in American history, only to incriminate himself through his own words years later. The Tupac murder was only half of the story that tore hip-hop apart in the 1990s. 6 months after Tupac's death, his rival, the notorious B.I.G., was also gunned down in Los Angeles, creating a second unsolved murder that many believed was connected to the first. According to Detective Kading's investigation, Biggie's murder was indeed retaliation for Tupac's death. The alleged shooter was Wardell Poochie Faust, a Bloods gang member who was reportedly hired to kill Biggie in revenge for Tupac's murder. The alleged mastermind behind Biggie's murder was Tammy Hawkins, Suge Knight's former girlfriend and the mother of his child. According to this theory, Hawkins arranged for Biggie's killing as payback for what she believed was the East Coast role in Tupac's death. However, Poochie Faust was killed in 2023, taking his secrets to the grave. Biggie's murder remains officially unsolved, though the connections to Tupac's case continue to intrigue investigators and hip-hop fans alike. The murders of Tupac Shakur and the notorious B.I.G. represented more than just the loss of 2 talented artists. They marked the end of hip-hop's golden age and demonstrated the deadly consequences of mixing street culture with mainstream success. The East Coast-West Coast rivalry that contributed to both murders was fueled by media hype, record label competition, and genuine criminal elements within the hip-hop community. What began as artistic competition escalated into a deadly feud that claimed 2 of rap's brightest stars. The 27-year delay in bringing charges in Tupac's case also highlights the challenges law enforcement faces when investigating crimes that cross the boundaries between celebrity culture and street gangs. The code of silence that protected Davis for decades is the same culture that continues to hamper investigations into hip-hop related violence today. Keith D's arrest in 2023 represented a form of justice, but it came too late for many of those most affected by Tupac's death. The rapper's mother, Fenn Shakur, died in 2016 without seeing anyone held accountable for her son's murder. Suge Knight, the only other survivor of the shooting, is currently serving a lengthy prison sentence for an unrelated killing. "We're in a constant state of grief and remorse and pain because we have to relive it," said Tupac Shakur in 2023. For Tupac's family and fans, the arrest brought some closure, but couldn't erase decades of pain and unanswered questions. The case serves as a reminder that in America's criminal justice system, the wealthy and connected often escape consequences for their actions, while the poor and marginalized bear the brunt of law enforcement attention. It took nearly 3 decades and a defendant's own confessions to finally bring charges in one of the most high-profile murders in recent memory. Today, as Keith D awaits trial for his alleged role in Tupac's murder, the hip-hop community continues to grapple with the legacy of violence that claimed 2 of its greatest voices. The arrest may provide legal closure, but the cultural wounds left by these murders continue to influence how we understand the intersection of music, fame, and street culture in America. The Tupac Shakur murder case ultimately stands as a cautionary tale about the price of fame, the persistence of gang culture, and the long arc of justice in America. After 27 years, the truth finally emerged, not through brilliant detective work or new evidence, but because a killer couldn't stop bragging about his crime. 5 shocking cases prove reality is stranger than fiction. Elisa Lam's mental health crisis, Harold Shipman's medical murders, Forrest Fenn's deadly treasure hunt, Brian Wells' collar bomb nightmare, Tupac's 27-year mystery solved by a confessing killer. Internet theories were wrong, but reality was more disturbing. No supernatural forces killed Elisa Lam, just untreated mental illness. No conspiracy behind Shipman's 250 murders, just a psychopath. No elaborate plot in Tupac's death, just gang revenge. Which case shocked you most? Share your thoughts and suggest other solved mysteries. The truth is always stranger than the theories. Subscribe for more solved mysteries where reality beats fiction.